Hi, EDLT 8240 friends. It's Susan Nunamaker, and I am here to share another lesson that I'm going to do with Sarah, a pseudonym, um, here in the next week. So, uh, this lesson is going to focus on comprehension, and there are some specific skills that I want to work with Sarah on in this lesson. I did a running record with Sarah a couple weeks ago when I was over at her school, and I noticed that she doesn't seem to use picture clues when she comes to an unknown word. And it can be a fairly simple word, that you could look at the first letter and look at the picture to figure out what that word might be. And she doesn't use that strategy. It may be that she's never been taught that strategy. I'm not sure. But I feel like that's something that we could easily work on together, and that way that would give her a new tool in her toolkit and help her get through being able to decipher words in order to ultimately comprehend what she's reading. So I want to make sure I hit all the bullet points that we are supposed to hit in this video. So I'm going to be looking at my notes from time to time. But like I said, we're going to use the picture clue strategy is going to be a main focus for the lesson, but we're going to also work toward, obviously, comprehension as our ultimate goal. So I have a story sequencing map that we're also going to use as we go through the book together. I'm going to model a little bit for her with this, but then ultimately she's going to need to complete this. I'm also going to make sure at the end of the lesson that I share this map with both her core teacher and her ESOL teacher that I've been partnering with for this practicum, to make sure that she has this resource if they think that it might be useful for her as she continues on. So that's the majority of the lesson. I do have a few citations here just to kind of back up the research behind one, students using those visual cues, those picture clues to decipher text, and two, about comprehension in general. So according to Proctor, Boardman, and Hibert, which is, as you know, one of our texts this semester, 2016, they say visual images provide emergent bilingual learners with comprehensible input that may help them access and articulate prior knowledge of a topic. And we'll talk about that later in the video. I'm a little concerned about her prior knowledge with the book I'm going to use with her, which we'll get further into here in a bit. But I do think the visual images are going to help build that prior knowledge for Sarah, if she doesn't already have it. I'm not sure about that. The next citation I want to share is not from one of our readings. It's from something extraneous that I found, but I did find incredibly interesting. It's Really Good Teachers, and I'm sure we're all familiar with the really good stuff that we order from time to time as teachers. They have a website that they sponsor called Really Good Teachers, and they have guest bloggers. And so Brandy Jordan was a guest blogger on Really Good Teachers in 2016. And she said, using picture clues or detecting is a key strategy for beginning readers, which I think, those of us who are veteran teachers, we've seen that in all of our readers, especially when we teach the little ones. Pictorial clues can serve as a bridge to decoding strategies such as sounding out and blending, and also compensate for weak decoding skills in struggling readers. Now, this is readers in general, but I think if we think about our ELL students, oftentimes they're in that struggling reader category because they're trying to learn a new language and read in a new language. Pictures can also increase comprehension by providing elaboration for a text explanation and improve recollection and retention. So there's that comprehension piece. Teaching students to use the detecting strategy will help support other reading strategies as they learn how to read fluently and accurately, which is our ultimate goal. And the last citation I want to share in this section of the video is from Proctor, Boardman, and Hibert again. 2016. One of the most effective ways to tap into emergent bilingual students' background knowledge and experiences related to the content, concepts, and academic vocabulary of a lesson is through the use of visual images. So this lesson is going to focus greatly on using visual images. So next we are to discuss how the lesson plan addresses our literacy topic, which in this case for Sarah is comprehension, which I feel like we've been touching on with the intro. We'll continue with that. Okay, so the National Reading Panel. Now this comes again from our text this semester, Proctor, Boardman, Hybert, 2016. But in their text, they cite research that was conducted by the National Reading Panel in 2000, as well as RAND Reading Study Group in 2002. So they've taken that research and have placed it in their text to support their thoughts and beliefs, what they're writing. So this research identified several instructional strategies associated with improved outcomes in reading comprehension, which again is the ultimate focus for this lesson with Sarah, especially for emergent bilingual learners. So the first strategy, and I'm only going to touch on 3 of them because they go along with the picture clues that we're working with. The first strategy is to teach students to monitor their comprehension and the procedures for adjusting when difficulties in understanding arise. So this is going to focus on that adjusting when difficulties arise in terms of figuring out how to decode a word using picture clues. The second is to use cooperative learning practices while implementing comprehension strategies in the context of reading, which then again goes along with both using picture clues and considering the sequence of a story and its events to comprehend the entire story. And then 3, provide graphic and semantic organizers that assist students in writing or drawing relationships. And we're actually going to do both. You can see the boxes, that's why I chose this map. There's boxes where Sarah's going to draw, and then there's lines where we're going to write sentences. I'm going to let her dictate those sentences to me, and I'll write them, but she will come up with the sentences. Okay. So essentially, the student, Sarah, is going to learn a new strategy using picture clues as well as using a sequencing map to monitor her comprehension and adjust when difficulties arise. And she's going to learn, like I said, to use picture clues to decipher new words or unknown words when she comes to those words. All right, this lesson, again, is going to use that I do, we do, you do approach. So I'm going to scaffold the learning to try to help Sarah work toward independence. First, I'm going to model. I'm going to read aloud. I'm going to do a think aloud to show Sarah, A, what's expected in the lesson, and then B, how my mind is processing that information. That's really important, really for all learners I've found in my past, but especially for struggling learners. And I don't think Sarah is necessarily a struggling learner. She seems to be a very smart cookie, but right now it's just a difficult time for her as she tries to learn a whole new language. So there's that hurdle there for her. And I want to do everything I can to help her through that. So I think the think aloud will help. And then we're going to work together on reading and using picture clues. I'm going to give her a lot of support, and we'll work together a little bit on the sequencing piece. And then at the end, she has a few pages that I expect her to read on her own and use those picture clues on her own. I may ask her questions, to point to what picture clue she used and maybe explain how she used it. And then she's going to sequence the story on her own at the end. All right, so now we're to the teaching piece. And all right, I went to the library. I live in Oconee County, right outside of Clemson, and Sarah goes to a school in Oconee County, right near my house. And I went to the Oconee County Library because I don't have access to a school library like I used to. And I just sat on the floor and tried to find books that seemed to be on an instructional level for Sarah, meaning that they might challenge her on her own, but they would be a good tool for instruction in terms of her being able to mostly read the words on her own, but need some help, especially in the area that we're focusing on for the lesson. All right, so I chose 3 books, and then I also was looking for a book that had a lot of picture clues and that had a sequence of events that we could easily go through together. So I found 3 books, and the first one was called Daniel Will Pack a Snack. It was really good in terms of picture clues and in terms of sequencing. But once I got home and read it again, I felt like it might be a little too easy. But I'm keeping it just in case I get there and we start and the book I chose is way too hard. I can always resort to Daniel Will Pack a Snack, right? All right. The second one that I'm going to share with you is called 5 Little Chicks. Again, great picture clues, great sequencing, but I was a little concerned about it being possibly, I don't know, too difficult with the words that were used and maybe not enough of a storyline. I'm keeping it just in case, but I chose to use Just an Adventure at Sea. I feel like this is a good instructional level for Sarah. I feel like it provides a really great storyline. My concern with the book is that she may not have any prior knowledge with boating or fishing, but the visual clues are going to introduce her to that. So when we get to the feedback portion of this video, I'll be interested to see what you think after we read the book together. All right, so to start the story, I'm going to explain to Sarah, just like we've talked about. Today we're going to be using pictures to figure out words that we don't know. So the first thing that I want to do with you today, Sarah, is to read a few pages and just show you how I use pictures to figure out words that I don't know. And then we're going to work on that together a little bit. Will that be okay with you? And hopefully Sarah says yes. She's a really sweet girl, so I think she will. Okay, so Just an Adventure, can you see that? Just an Adventure at Sea by Mercer Mayer. This is part of that little critter series I'm sure we're all familiar with. Okay, here we go. Dad buys a boat. We are going fishing in the ocean. Now, I would stop here and I would say, Dad buys a, I don't know that word. I know it starts with a B. What in this picture looks like it might start with a B? That's a boat. Boat. Dad buys a boat. Yeah, Dad buys a boat. We are going Now here's an example of where it's not in the picture necessarily, but I know Dad buys a boat and we're going something with an F. Maybe fishing? Fishing. Now this probably is going to be a struggle for Sarah. So I would model, where could I go fishing? Where could I go fishing that looked like in the ocean? Dad buys a boat. We're going fishing in the ocean. So we're also going to need to talk as we go through this about how we may not see the words in the picture, but if we already kind of know what's going on in the story and we know what the words start with, we can kind of sound them out. We might be able to figure them out. And you can also see how I kind of did a think aloud there, like how I would figure these words out. And I'm going to do that for Sarah. I think that's really important. But first, we will fix up the boat, right? All right, and then I will continue modeling on these pages. We must what is that word? What's going on in this picture? Let me see. I'm looking and I see a paint can. I see paint brushes. We must paint the boat. I see the boat in both pictures. Dad says, but I say, painting is hard. And if we look over here, we give the boat a new name. Now this, I looked at this and I thought this is going to be way too difficult to read, but I'm just going to help her through this one. The Gina Maru is a good name, I say. Dad agrees. And they're painting the words Gina Maru on the boat. All right, and then we're going to start, right here, I'm going to stop the reading with Sarah. And this is where, make sure I'm telling you everything I'm doing here. All right. This is where I'm going to start a conversation with her just about how I use the picture clues. So we'll go back and I'll say, Sarah, did you see how when I came to the word boat, I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew it started with a B, and I looked around and I saw a boat on the page. Same with paint and painting. Did you see where I didn't know that word, but I knew it started with a P, and I saw that Dad had these paint brushes. So I thought maybe it was paint. That's a hard word. And when I came to it the second time, I knew I'd seen it before, but it looked a little different. But it had that ing on the end. And we know that ing says ing, painting, right? So I'm going to have that kind of conversation with Sarah. And then I'm going to ask her, do you think we can use that strategy together before we move on to the we do part? All right. I also am thinking about, in that conversation, introducing the sequencing map and just saying, we're going to be using this as we go. So what would you think the first event could be? The first event could be that Dad brought the boat home, right? We see that in the illustration. We're going to make an illustration later, and we would write Dad brought the boat home. The second thing that happened is that Dad and son, I don't think they've said the son's name yet, painted the boat. So I'm gonna introduce that, I believe, right there in the lesson. Now, pages 10 and 11, we're gonna do this together, just like I did it, when I modeled. I'm gonna let her read as much as she can. I'm gonna support her through it. So that's that joint productive activity. So the fishing day is here. We hook the boat to our car. Obviously, it's going to go slower than that. We might have to look at the car. Might have to look at the boat again. But I'm going to read a little faster now because I only have 40 minutes in this video, and I want to make sure we get through it. So we get all of our fishing stuff, and off we go. And we can see the fishing stuff coming out of the car right here. Remember that we're reading together at this point. We buy bait to catch the fish, which is right here. This stuff is nasty, I say. Then we drive to the boat ramp. We put our boat in the water. Now, unfortunately, a boat ramp is not shown in this picture. We might need to talk about what that is. It's on the next page. Dad forgets to put the drain plug in the bottom of the boat. My dad has done that too. Ooh, it's never good. It fills with water and sinks. We have to pull it out and drain it. Now, one thing I noticed about this book, for any of you who go to the lake or ocean in your boat and don't put the plug in, is that they continue out. That would never happen because it would take forever to get the boat out. You wouldn't feel like going back out. But anyway, we won't get into that. Now we are all set to go fishing. The ocean is calm and smooth. We bait our hooks and cast our lines. Dad puts out more fishing lines. Why so many, I ask. To catch more fish, Dad says. We wait for a long time. The sun is hot and there is no breeze. Dad says, look, seagulls. That means fish. Let's go. We speed over to the birds. Sure enough, there are fish. Lots of fish everywhere. Wham! All the lines have caught a fish. We reel them in. And we'll probably talk about what reeling in is, right? That's why I'm a little concerned about this book. But the lines get tangled and all the fish get away. What a mess, I say. We try to untangle the lines. That is no fun. So, I don't know if y'all can see this. There's a little mouse right there. And on this fishing line, it says, be my friend. Cute. Okay. I think the fish are laughing at us, Dad says. That is silly. Fish don't laugh. Over there, says Dad. Do you see the whales? We go for a better look. The whales are very big. They are leaping out of the water. I yell, Dad, we are too close. A whale tail shoots up into the air and comes down with a big splash. There are a lot of onomatopoeias in this book. which is a second grade standard, or at least when I was teaching. So that'll be good for Sarah because she's a second grader. The water floods our boat. The whales are bored. They leave. Look, Dad, I say, see all the big fish around the boat? Do y'all see those big fish? Dad looks nervous. He says, we have to bail real quick. Those fish are sharks. Look at the dolphins, Dad. I say, sharks are afraid of dolphins. The sharks run. That was fun, I say, but Dad says it was just enough adventure for one day. All right. I'm still not sold on this book, but it does have good sequencing. There are a lot of great picture clues, so I'm going to try it out, I think, with her, unless y'all tell me something different. Okay, so what I forgot to mention as I was going through, sorry, is that I'm on page 25. This is where we're going to stop our joint productive activity. We're going to stop the we do process. We're going to have a conversation about the picture clues, a review about how we use them. We're also going to talk about, we're going to go back and review the sequencing of the lesson. But, and Sarah's going to hopefully be able to tell me the events of the story so far. But from here, where they see the big whale, until the end of the book, which is just a few pages. You've got 2, 4, 6, 7 pages. That's the you do part of the story. So that's where I'm going to let Sarah try her best to use the picture clues on her own, read to me. Again, I'm not going to let her struggle. So if she can't get it, I'll help her. But I'm going to do my best to let her do that on her own, because that's going to be that you do. I always get those mixed up. You do portion. So she's going to read that, and then I'm going to ask her to tell me the events in the story. And then I'm going to give her her own sequencing map, and I am going to let her use the book. But the assessment is going to be, can she draw a picture, show me the important events in the story, and then can she dictate a sentence about those events? And I will write it, but I'm not going to come up with the sentence for her. This is going to be the assessment to see, was she able to figure out the sequence of events and be able to comprehend the story that we read together. So, like I said, that's the assessment piece of the lesson. All right, and then for closure, we're going to go back to pages 30 and 31. It'll be right here. And this is we're gonna just review again how to use the picture clues before we wrap up the lesson. Review the story map that she did. And I'll give her any kind of instructional feedback that I feel like would be beneficial at that point. I don't think we're gonna need the voice translator app this time. But in the event that we do, I'm going to have it handy just in case it would be helpful for some of these vocabulary terms or anything that I might be saying that might be confusing. So I'll have that on hand. And then I think that's the end of the lesson with Sarah. That should take a good 40 minutes for sure. So in terms of reflecting, I think I've talked a little bit about the book. That's what I talk about in every video, right? I always want to find that perfect book, and it's so hard. But I'm going to have 3 books with me, like we talked about, just in case this one is too difficult and the prior knowledge of fishing and boating is just way too out there for Sarah. Although I do think it's a good way to introduce her to something new if she hasn't done it before. This will probably be my next go-to if this one's too difficult. It doesn't have the great sequencing, you know, the events. I mean, it is sequenced. It does have events, but just not quite as different from one to the other. And then this one, I don't know. I just feel like it's a little too babyish for Sarah, but it'll be on hand just in case. All right. So my first reflective concern is the book, but I think it's going to be okay. But if you have better ideas, please do let me know. And then again, that spatial modality. So I used audio. I mean, we're reading and talking, discussing. I'm using that think aloud. We're using visual, obviously, because we're studying picture clues. And linguistic, we're using that story sequence, and she's drawing while I'm writing what she dictates. So, and we're having conversation. But spatial, we could act it out, but we would need more time. So I'm not sure, you know, I love spatial learning. I use that a lot as a teacher in the classroom, but I had more time because it wasn't a pull-out scenario. So if you have ideas for that, to bring in that spatial modality, I'm all for it. And then the last thing is, I do have a slight concern about using this book, as we talked about, not only with prior knowledge, but also with her making meaning to her own life. Because if she doesn't get to go boating or fishing, then it might be hard for her to make that meaning and connect to her own life. So if you have any ideas for that, please do let me know. On the one hand, I feel like using picture clues in general has a broad impact on her life and her ability to read, but I want to be able to connect what we're reading to her life. So I will ask her questions as we go through, like, you know, have you ever been boating, or have you ever been fishing, or do you eat fish? Do you wonder where they come from? You know, I mean, I might have to stretch to figure that out. But if you have any ideas about introducing something new to a student through text and them maybe not having that prior knowledge and maybe not being able to relate it to their own life, what do you do? So share, please. Okay, so that is the lesson that I plan to use with Sarah next week. I'm excited to see her. I don't get to see her that often because now I'm only there for the practicum experiences, unfortunately, because I don't work in that school and don't want to hound the ESOL teacher to come all the time, although she's great to let me come. But anyway, because I don't get to see her all the time, it is super exciting to get to go and see her because she's really an awesome kid. So I look forward to it. And I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to seeing your lessons. All right. Y'all have a great day.